In this video, I'm going to go over how I like to fine-tune Ubuntu Linux to my personal preferences, and for home computing clients of mine who I've migrated to Linux from Windows, so they can continue using their older but still perfectly functional computers that don't meet the system requirements of Windows 11. Here we have a fresh installation of Ubuntu 24.04 LTS. LTS as in long-term support, supported for 5 years after release, which was April of 2024. The 24 in 24.04 is the year of release, 2024, and the 04 is month, April. LTS versions release every even year in April. The next version will be released in April 2026. That'll be Ubuntu 26.04 LTS. Now let's fine-tune the user interface. So we start out with this Welcome to Ubuntu 24.04 LTS screen. I'm going to click Next. And for Ubuntu Pro, you can click Skip for now, Next. And you have the option here to share system data with the Ubuntu team, either yes or no, next. And then there's the App Center to install apps. We'll click on Finish. Now let's go to Settings and fine-tune the user interface a little bit. If you click on this Show Apps button, the Ubuntu logo, then we can click on Settings here. Now I already connected to a Wi-Fi network, as we can see under Wi-Fi settings. If I click on Multitasking, and scroll down, I like to set this to a fixed number of workspaces and set it to 1. In Appearance, you can select a different background if you want. In Ubuntu Desktop, you can change the size of icons, their position, and you can opt to either show or not show the home folder. I'm going to position icons at the top left for a more conventional look. As far as the dot goes, I like to auto-hide it, I like to turn panel mode off, and I like to turn the size down a little bit. Additionally, I like to position it at the bottom. Under notifications, you can opt to either show lock screen notifications or not. If the computer is locked and lock screen notifications is turned off, then notifications will not appear on the lock screen. If we scroll down further and click on Privacy and Security, one of the settings that you might want to configure is the lock screen. If I click on lock screen, I can change the duration before the system blanks the screen, and I can enable automatic screen lock or not. So when the screen blanks after, in this case, 5 minutes, that will lock the system versus not locking it. Now, if you're going to keep your computer in a controlled environment, you might want to turn this off so that every time the screen blanks, you don't have to type in the password to unlock your system. But if it's a laptop, you might want to have this turned on. That way, if you step away and forget to lock your system, it's going to lock automatically after that blank screen duration. Under System and Date and Time, I like setting 12-hour format. So I'm going to close out of Settings now. I'm going to drag this Home icon to the top left. Let's take a look at this Home folder. If I open the Home folder, we see I have Desktop, Documents, Downloads, Music, Pictures, and some other folders. By default, you're going to be saving documents to your Documents folder and pictures to your Pictures folder and so on. Downloads will be saved to the Downloads folder. Files in the desktop will be in the Desktop folder. Let's take a look at network settings. This is a laptop I'm on right now. If I click on the top right, we see Wi-Fi, and I can click on the arrow next to Wi-Fi, and I can select a different Wi-Fi network if I want. Let's say I want to forget a network. I can click on All Networks. I can click on the gear next to the one I'm connected to, that I can click on Forget Connection, and then forget. And let's reconnect to it. Click on it, I type in the password, connect, and we see when this icon turns white, we'll be connected. Let's look at some basic apps that come with Ubuntu, at least the extended installation, which includes additional applications. We have Firefox as the default web browser. If I minimize, we see there's a little orange dot below it indicating that it's open but minimized. We have Thunderbird as an email client. Files is the file manager. If I click on that, that will open up a view of my home folder. Rhythmbox is an audio player. We have LibreOffice Writer, a popular free word processor. We have the App Center. This is where you can install apps. Let's say I want to install VLC Media Player. I'll just search for VLC, and here it is right here. If I click on that and then install, I'll need to provide the password to install. It will download and install this software. We now see that VLC finished installing. If I close out of the App Center and I click on the Show Apps button, I can search for VLC. Now I can launch it by clicking on it, or if I right click and go to Pin to Dash, it will appear down in the launcher. So I'm going to hit escape and again, and I'm going to launch it from the launcher by clicking on it. Now this particular program, on the first time it's run, it'll want you to set certain options on first run. I'm going to uncheck this Allow Metadata Network Access box and click Continue. And now I can just close out of VLC. We see that it's launching now from the launcher. Now another way to install programs is using the terminal. Some programs will need to be installed through the terminal. Google Chrome is one such example. If I launch the App Center again and search for Google Chrome, we see it's not there. Now there is a browser called Chromium that Chrome is based on. That we can install from the App Center, but we can't install Chrome. If you want to actually run Chrome, you'll have to download the deb file from Google and then install it from the terminal. So let's do that right now. I'm going to go to Firefox. I'm just going to search for Google Chrome. We'll click on Google Chrome link and then download Chrome. And then I'm offered the deb and the RPM version. We want the deb version. I'm going to click on Accept and Install. And that's going to download that deb file to our Downloads folder. Now the actual commands to install it, we can search for using ChatGPT. So if I click on the Downloads button, we see that Google Chrome Stable Current AMD64.dev has been downloaded. I'm going to press Control Alt and the T key to open up the terminal. I'm going to type cd space DOW and then the tab key to change directly to the Downloads folder. And now I'm going to type in sudo dpkg-i, and then I'm going to start typing with the name of that file, GOOG, and then I'm going to press tab, and it fills in the rest. Google Chrome Stable Current AMD64.deb, and hit enter. It's asking now for the password, the user account password. I type that in, hit enter. Now that it appears to install, let's see if we can find it in Show Apps. So I click on Show Apps, I'm going to type in Chrome, and there it is right there. I'm going to right click and go to Pin to Dash, and I'll drag it to the far left there, assuming I might want to make it be my default browser for easy access, and I'll click on it. Now it says choose a password for new keyring. Now you could set a password here, and this password would be prompted for every time you open Chrome. In this case, I'm going to leave both fields blank and click on Continue. And it says here, it warns me, store passwords unencrypted. By choosing a blank password, your stored passwords will not be safely encrypted. They will be accessible by anyone with access to your files. So you have the option to either encrypt or not encrypt based on either entering a password or leaving those fields blank. If you have good physical security of your device, you might, for convenience, not want to encrypt. But you certainly have the option to encrypt. And if you were to encrypt the whole drive from the beginning of your Ubuntu install, you wouldn't have to worry about this because everything would be encrypted by virtue of using full drive encryption. I'm just going to click Continue, and I'll make Chrome my default browser for this example. Click OK. You can optionally send usage stats to Google or not. I'll click on Don't Sign In, More, and got it. So now Chrome is installed. Let's look at a couple of graphical apps that you can install on Ubuntu. One is called Pinta, more of an MS Paint similar graphics program. Now that Pinta has been installed, I can click on Open, or I can also click on Show Apps and search for it. And if I want to pin it to the dash, I can just right-click on it and select Pin to Dash, and there it is right there. So it's a basic image editor. For something more sophisticated, there's GIMP. And for video editing, I like Kdenlive. Now let's talk quickly about adding a networked printer. So this computer is on the same network as a network printer of mine, an HP LaserJet 2200 DN that I have. I can click on the Show Apps, just type in Printer, and launch Printers. And if I click on Add Printer, it's going to search for printers. Now, if you have a fairly new printer and want to connect to it via USB, it should just be a matter of connecting it via USB, and Ubuntu should be able to find it. So in this case, it found my LaserJet printer. I could just click on it and click on Add, and it would proceed with adding it. Let's take a quick look at LibreOffice next. If you're coming from Windows, you might want to have LibreOffice save in Microsoft Office formats. I'm just going to launch LibreOffice Writer, and we'll configure it to save in Microsoft Office formats. Now, if I go to Tools and Options, and then Load Save, General, and right here, Document Type, we can select Text Documents, and then Always Save As, and then we can select Word 2010 through 365 document, DocX files. We can then select Spreadsheets, and instead of saving them in ODS format, which is LibreOffice's preferred format, we can optionally set Excel 2007-365 XLSX. And additionally, with presentations, the Impress program, which is included, which is more or less the Microsoft PowerPoint equivalent, we can save those as PPTX files, PowerPoint 2007 through 365. Hit Apply and OK. Now maybe you want to save in the native formats of LibreOffice, but if you're coming from Microsoft Office, you might prefer to save in those formats. LibreOffice can certainly open those formats from Microsoft Office. It's up to you how you want to approach that. So I'll close out of LibreOffice Writer. LibreOffice Calc, the spreadsheet program, if I click on Show Apps and type in Calc, we see right here LibreOffice Calc, the spreadsheet program. Very similar to Excel. While we're at it, if I click on the Show Apps and just type in Calc again, we see there's a calculator right here. That can be handy. Basic, Advanced, other options. Now going back to this Show Apps button, instead of clicking on this button with the mouse, I can also press the Super key on the computer. The Super key is also known as the Windows key on a computer that formerly ran Windows. Now most PCs come with Windows, so that key has a Windows logo typically on it. Now if I press that key, this interface pops up and I can switch to different applications I currently have open, or I can search for applications or files on the computer. It's somewhat similar to clicking on that Show Apps button where we have the search field appear at the top. Another handy feature is taking screenshots. If I press the Print Screen key on the computer, this appears and I can either take a selective screenshot, or I can click on Screen and take a whole screenshot. And the location these screenshots are saved is to the Pictures folder. So if I click on Files, Pictures, Screenshots, and I double click, there's that screenshot I just took. Now I'll right click on this and go to Move to Trash, close that, and I'll empty my trash. I'll right click on the trash and empty trash. Now, Ubuntu and other Linux distros or distributions have lower system requirements than Windows 11. By using Linux, you can continue using an older computer that still works, as opposed to spending a bunch of money on a faster new computer just to run Windows 11. Ubuntu and other Linux distros are free to use, support lots of various hardware, and have really gotten to the point of being more user-friendly than Windows. It's true there are still some cases where some peripherals aren't as cooperative on Linux versus Windows, such as old printers, or ones that just don't have good Linux support from the manufacturer. Though it's also certainly the case that older peripherals can also be unsupported by Windows 11. In my experiences, tax preparation and specialized business productivity software can be a deal breaker in switching to Linux. Those are cases where a Windows PC might still be preferred or needed. There are some clever ways of running Windows software in Linux, such as using a program called Wine, but that can be glitchy and is more of an advanced topic. For computing basics, though, such as web browsing, word processing, and even gaming, graphics work, and video editing, Linux can be a great option and a very economical alternative to Microsoft Windows. Linux also isn't nearly the target of malware that Windows is, though malware threats targeting Windows seem to have lessened a bit over the years, shifting towards targeting web browsers and social engineering scams, whereby scammers use web browser notifications to trick people to call them, where they can then use legit remote control software to run their scams and wreak havoc. Broadly speaking, though, Linux is a safer operating system than Windows when it comes to malware threats, though one still needs to be vigilant when it comes to browser-based threats like phishing and fake tech support call and remote control scams. The LTS, or long-term support versions of Ubuntu, provide 5 years of support. That is, updates to software that can have security implications, in addition to functionality implications. When support ends, it's best to evaluate whether your computer hardware is still up to the task of running the latest version of Ubuntu, and either backing up data and upgrading the version, or backing up data and performing a fresh installation of the latest LTS version. In cases where the hardware is sluggish or not well supported by a newer version of Ubuntu, there can be lighter distros that can be used instead. Lighter Ubuntu-based distros I like are Xubuntu and Lubuntu. Let's now go over some of the basics in Ubuntu. Let's access power controls. So if I click on the Show Apps, I can click on Settings, and then under Power, I can select the power mode, whether or not to dim the screen, how long for screen blank to occur, and other options, such as power button behavior. I can also get an idea of how healthy the battery is if this is a laptop. If I click on the Show Apps and type in Power, and then click on Power Stats, I can click on Laptop Battery, and I see here, energy when full, 36.2 watt hours, energy design, 47 watt hours. So if I divide 36.2 divided by 47, that'll give me an idea of how healthy the battery is. So the battery on this laptop is holding about 77% of its original design capacity, so it's still in decent condition. Connecting to Wi-Fi. So at the top right, we see that I'm connected currently to Wi-Fi. And I can click on the little arrow next to Wi-Fi and then all networks, and I can optionally forget that. Or if I'm in a different location, different wireless networks would be presented to me that I could click on and then type in the password to connect to. If I open LibreOffice and just create a test document, I'll just type in test, file, save. We see it's going to default to the Documents folder. I'll just click on Save and then close out of LibreOffice. And if I double click on the Documents folder, there's that test document. If I double click on it, that'll open, and we see right there, test. To recap on the App Center, I can also remove applications. If I search for VLC, we see it's installed here. If I click on the three dots, I can uninstall it if I want to. So the App Center is a way to install applications via graphical user interface, whereas the terminal is how you can install applications using a terminal text interface. And like previously stated, some applications might need to be installed using the terminal versus the App Center. Now let's discuss checking for updates. If I click on the Show Apps button and I type Update, we see Software Updates. If I click on that icon, the Software Updater will open. It will look for updates. Now the software updater should run every once in a while anyway, and you might be presented to install updates every once in a while. So here we see there are 758.3 megabytes of updates to download and install. I'll click on Install Now. And now I have to type in the password to install those updates. Now after Ubuntu 26.04 is released in April of 2026, a 24.04 LTS user will likely get prompted of that release and be offered to upgrade to it. Caution should be exercised. It's best to back up data before performing an upgrade. A computer technician might be best to perform such an upgrade. Now we see updates finish and it wants us to restart the computer. I'm going to click on Restart Later. Now another handy thing you can do to check the health of the storage drive in the computer is to click on the Show Apps button and then type in Disks and then launch the Disks program. If I click on the disk here, this is the boot drive, I can click on the three dots and then Smart Data and Self-Tests. Now we see the smart data indicates the drive is okay, but I can also click on Start Self-Test and perform a short, extended, or conveyance test. Now the extended test is the more exhaustive test, so I can click on that, type in my password, and this will test my storage drive for functionality. When the tests finish, it will indicate whether the disk is okay or not. I'll click on Stop Self-Test because I know this drive is in good condition, but this can be a good way to check your disk every once in a while. Next, let's talk about backing up data. Now I came up with a scripted way of backing up data to a flash drive. I'll set that up now. So I just plugged in a USB flash drive that has instructions on how to set all this up. So I'm going to open up this rsync backup setup.txt file. I'm going to press Ctrl-Alt-T to open up the terminal, and I'm going to run this command here, nano backup.sh. Control-C, right-click, paste, hit enter, and I'm going to copy and paste this script and I'm also going to note the name of the drive, how it's appearing on the system here. This flash drive appears as media user and then this identifier. So I'm going to copy that and I'm going to paste that in the script here by this rsync command. So media user and the name of the drive there, the drive's identifier. And I want this to back up everything in my user folder. it's going to exclude hidden files and folders. That's what that dot asterisk means. So I'm going to save and close this. So Control X, Y, and Enter. And if I type ls to see what's in my current folder here, we see backup.sh. I need to make that .sh or script file executable. So chmod +x backup.sh. And now if I run that backup script, ./backup.sh, and I'll press Control C to quit out of that. So what it did is it backed up all the files in my user folder to the flash drive. And then after it completes, if it's successful, it'll shut down 10 seconds after it completes. So if we take a look at the contents of that flash drive now, we see there's a folder called User, and within that folder are all the folders and files that are in my home folder. If I click back and right click on it and go to Properties, we see there's 200 megabytes worth of data there. But now what I want to do is I want to make this backup easily runnable from the launcher. So to do that, I'm going to copy this rsync.png image file. I'm going to copy that and paste it in my home folder. I'm going to go back to the terminal, and I'm going to run this command here, sudo cp rsync.png. I'm going to copy that PNG file to user share applications. And I type in the password. Next, I need to create the launcher. So I type in this command here to create the backup.desktop launcher. I'm going to copy and paste this text into this new file. Now we see it's an application. It's going to run from the terminal. It's going to be called backup and shut down. It's going to use this rsync.png image file for its icon, and it's actually going to execute the backup.sh script. Now in this case, my username is user, but in your case, if your username is something else, you would need to change this right here to whatever your username is. I see here if I open up the file manager, home user, and the backup script is right there. So I'm going to press Control X, Y, and Enter to save that file. And now that I've saved that file, if I click on the Show Apps button and I type in Backup, there it is, Backup and Shut Down. And what I can do is I can right-click on this and click on Pin to Dash. And now that rsync icon is right there. If I close out of everything and just click on this icon, it's going to run that backup and shut down. Now if I don't close this within 10 seconds, it will shut the computer down. So by configuring it this way, this allows you to get a regular backup of your system every time you shut down, just by clicking on this icon to back up and shut down. Now if I eject the drive, right click and go to eject, and then remove it, and then I click on rsync, we see it says data backup error, press any key to exit. So we click on the backup and shut down rsync icon, it has a backup error and it doesn't shut down. So that's how we know there's a problem in backup, the system doesn't shut down. So that's a way of knowing if it backs up fine or not. If the system shuts down, you know it completed, but if it doesn't shut down, then you know there was an error. So if I X out of this and I plug the flash drive back in, and then I click on rsync again, it backed up and I can close this before it actually shuts the computer down. But it is important to eject your drive properly. If you don't, you could corrupt it. As for shutting the computer down or restarting it conventionally, if you click on the top right, similar to how you connected to Wi-Fi, we have the power button right there. If you click on that, you have options of suspend, restart, shut down, or log out. You can also lock the machine by pressing the super key and L, or you can click on the top right again, and the lock button is right there. So this concludes my quick overview on fine-tuning basics in Ubuntu 24.04 LTS and going over some basics of operation.